Las Ceann Corla, as somebody who's a political activist, but also somebody who was adopted and was born in a mother and baby home, I have to say I have very mixed feelings about all of this discussion, the debate, the report, and I suspect that is true of many, many survivors and those who went through mother and baby homes. I mean, in my own situation, my outcome, if you like, was relatively benign, in that I was adopted by a lovely family, a wonderful family, and I was lucky enough to eventually be reunited with my biological family. But I'm acutely aware, for huge numbers of other people, the outcome was not so benign, and I'm really upset that what should have been a moment when women and children who suffered at the hands of the church and state finally had their turn to have their voices heard, to reclaim their history, their identity, to change the narrative and to put the people who actually lived that history back at the centre in their rightful place, that has not happened. That has not happened with this process. And the fears that survivors had that official Ireland, political Ireland, would bring its influence to bear on the story, on the history, on the narrative, and put its interests first. Those fears have been realised with this report, with the commentary around it, and I mean, it's incredibly disappointing when we had the debacle around the legislation, the seal, and so on, before Christmas, that this has happened. Surely the warnings were given to government, to the people putting the report together, that this must not happen, and yet that's exactly what's happened. And I even wondered, you know, before the debate last week at Leaders' Questions after the publication, when my gut instinct led me to say I think that the report, what I'd read, was an insult, a sham and a whitewash. I even then wondered, am I being unfair? But the more you read, the more you hear from the survivors, the more you hear how the actual testimonies that were given were not given the weight, were not even considered evidence, were not transcribed accurately, and you hear survivor after survivor saying this is not what they expected, this is not what they wanted, this is not the vindication that they expected, I realise no. My gut instincts were right. Our fears were realised. Official Ireland. And isn't that the whole point about all of this? That we have official Ireland was never going to admit its crimes. A report that relied on the official records. It was precisely official Ireland, church and state Ireland, who presided over the shadow state, who presided over the abuse, the neglect, centred on the obscene concept of legitimacy. Legitimacy. What an offensive term. That any report could try and disperse that onto people in general, fathers and families, when it was on the statute books into 1987, that it was written in the registration of mothers and babies when they were born in the homes. Some are legitimate and some are illegitimate. And of course, if you're illegitimate, then treating you as less than human, allowing malnutrition, allowing sickness, allowing you to be buried in an unmarked grave, allowing your history to be stolen, your narrative to be distorted and twisted with a perverse ideology that was driven by the priorities of politicians and of religious orders and institutions. That is the reality. And this report whitewashes that and insults the survivors. Now, Minister, I believe you when you say you want to put that right.
Thank you.
But I'm telling you, this has failed so far. And you need now to put the survivors and the real voices, the real history that has been denied, at the centre of the process of redress, of the archive, and of all the supports necessary in order to right the terrible wrong that has been done to the people in the mother and baby homes.